2026. You're listening to Cyber FM. I'm your host, Arias Thomas, and this is today's Cybersecurity Report, being brought to you by the RSSH Delivery Company, New York's exclusive delivery option.
You are listening to Cyber FM, hosted by Arias Thomas.
Welcome to Cyber FM. I'm your host, Arias Thomas, and I'm glad that you're here. It's Thursday, July 9th, 2026. The week's almost done, but the attackers don't keep office hours, and the wire's been very busy right up until airtime. This is the show dedicated to reporting on cyber warfare, and today we've got 4 fresh stories straight off the wire, and here they are. A 15-year-old flaw buried in the heart of Linux that just got a working exploit published, one that turns any ordinary user into the master of the machine in about 5 seconds. A secret backdoor discovered hiding in the firmware of popular home routers. A hidden password that lets a stranger walk right past the one you set with no fix in sight. The quiet story of a small county that paid $1 million in secret to make a group of extortionists go away, and what its leaked ransom negotiation reveals about how these deals really get struck. And a slick phishing campaign that never asked for your password at all, because it's found a way to get you to hand over the keys to your work account through Microsoft's front door. A ghost in the kernel, a backdoor in the router, $1 million secret, and a login page that's a little too legitimate. 4 battles, 1 front. Let's begin.
Story number 1, GhostLock, a 15-year-old Linux flaw that hands over the whole machine in 5 seconds.
Our first story lives at the very foundation of the modern internet, the Linux kernel, the core software running a huge share of the world's servers, cloud systems, and containers. Researchers at a firm called Nebula Security just disclosed a flaw they've named GhostLock, and the headline number is the one that should make every system administrator sit right up. It lets any logged in user with no special permissions seize total control of the machine, full root, in roughly 5 seconds. And here's the kicker. This bug has been sitting quietly in the kernel since 2011. That's 15 years. So let me lay out why this is so serious. The flaw lives in a deep, unglamorous corner of the kernel that manages how tasks wait for their turn for shared resources. Code so fundamental that it ships turned on by default in essentially every mainstream Linux distribution. Triggering it doesn't require a strange configuration, administrator rights, or even a network connection. The ordinary threading operations any local program performs are enough. Nebula built a working exploit that succeeds 97% of the time. And this is the part that matters for the cloud. It also breaks out of containers, meaning a single compromised container can seize the entire host machine underneath it and pivot to everything else running on it. They earned a $92,000 bounty from Google for the find, and crucially, they've now published the working exploit code publicly. That last detail changes the clock. As of now, no one's been caught using this in a real attack, but with the reliable, ready-to-run exploit sitting in the open, security researchers are blunt that weaponization is a matter of days to weeks, not months. This bug also has a nasty second life. Researchers chained it to a separate browser flaw so that a single tap on a malicious link could carry an attacker all the way to full device control. So, the "you need local access first" caveat is thinner than it sounds. A patch is out, but rollout is uneven. Some major distributions were still catching up as of this week, and the first attempt at a fix introduced a separate bug of its own. So here's the takeaway. Patch your kernels now and don't wait for the next maintenance window. Check your specific distribution's advisory and confirm you've actually got the fixed package rather than assuming one is waiting for you. Prioritize the shared multi-tenant machines first, cloud servers, container host, and the automated build systems developers use, because that's exactly where an attacker is most likely to already have the small foothold this flaw needs. And the broader lesson, the most dangerous bugs right now are the ancient, load-bearing ones nobody has reread in a decade. And it's been fine for 15 years is not the same thing as it's safe.
Story number 2, the password behind the password. A hidden backdoor found in popular home routers.
Story number 2 is for everyone with a Wi-Fi router humming away in their home or small office. The CERT Coordination Center at Carnegie Mellon has issued a warning about a hidden backdoor discovered in the firmware of several popular routers made by the manufacturer Tenda. And it isn't a bug in the usual sense. It's It's a secret, undocumented password baked right into the device, one that lets a stranger stroll past whatever password you carefully set. Here's how the researchers found out it works. When you try to log into a router, the firmware first checks your password the normal way. But if that check fails, instead of just denying access, the code quietly reaches for a second hidden password stored deep into the device's own configuration. And if a visitor supplies that secret value, the router hands them full administrator control, no matter what username they typed. It's a spare key the manufacturer left under the mat without telling anyone. And what an attacker can do with that control is genuinely alarming. They can silently redirect every website you visit to a fake copy, switch off the router's firewall entirely, expose every phone, computer, and smart home gadget behind it, and dig in so deeply that the access survives a reboot. Now the hard part, as of this week, there is no patch. Affected models span several of Tinda's popular lines, and by the researchers' account, the vendor hadn't responded to the disclosure. That's the worst kind of vulnerability to defend against, because there's nothing you misconfigured to fix, and right now, nothing to install. A backdoor doesn't need an exploit, it just needs to be reachable. So here's the takeaway, and it's about damage control. If you own one of the affected Tinda models, the single most important thing you can do today is make sure the router's management screen is not reachable from the internet. Get into your settings and turn off any remote management or web access from WAN option immediately. Keep that admin interface strictly on your local network, and the broader lesson, which applies to every cheap gadget in your home, the trust you place in a device is only as good as the code you can't see inside it. Favor vendors with the real track record of shipping timely security fixes, and when a piece of hardware ages out of support or a manufacturer goes silent, that's your cue to retire it, because a device nobody's patching is a device somebody else is counting on.
Story number 3, The $1 Million Secret. Inside a small county's quiet ransom payment.
Story number 3 is less about a piece of technology and more about a very human moment of dread. The one where a public official watches their whole annual budget vanish into a criminal's crypto wallet. Thanks to a leaked negotiation transcript analyzed by researchers at Ransom ISAC, we now have a rare, detailed look inside a ransom payment that was never meant to be public. A small U.S. county that quietly paid roughly $1 million to a cyber extortion group called Kairos. And the way they got in is the part that should stick with you, because there's nothing sophisticated about it. By the attacker's own admission in the chat logs, they got into the county's network simply by guessing a password. Once inside, they didn't encrypt anything or lock up a single computer. And that's the modern twist. This was pure data theft extortion. They quietly copied more than 2 terabytes of files, some 1.6 million documents, including residential social security numbers, financial details, passport numbers, even fingerprints, and then sent their demand. Because nothing was ever locked or broken, the county systems kept running normally, which means the administrators had almost no way of knowing they'd been robbed until the ransom note landed in the inbox. The negotiation itself reads like a grim haggle. The group opened demanding $3 million and dangled a countdown timer. The county, describing itself as a small place with very limited resources, started at $100,000 and slowly climbed. In the end, they settled at $1 million, paid in Bitcoin, to buy the silence. And here's the uncomfortable footnote. The proof the criminals offered that they deleted the stolen data was, by the researchers' assessment, essentially unverifiable. The county paid a fortune for a promise from people whose entire business is breaking promises. This fits a broader shift researchers are tracking. Barely half of attacks now even bother with encryption, because stealing the data and threatening to publish it turns out to be all the leverage a criminal needs. So here's the takeaway, and it's aimed at every under-resourced organization: the towns, school districts, small businesses, and nonprofits listening. The entire chain here started with one guessed password, which means the single highest value thing you can do is turn on multi-factor authentication everywhere, especially on anything reachable from the internet. That one step would very likely have stopped this code. Keep offline tested backups so a data threat can also become an operations threat. And the broader lesson to sit with, ransomware has quietly evolved from locking your doors to stealing your secrets. And when the crime is theft rather than encryption, your systems can look perfectly normal right up until the moment you're asked to pay.
Story number 4, The Login That's Too Legitimate. A phishing scam that never asks for your password.
Our fourth and final story today is a clever one, because it turns one of the security world's own conveniences into a weapon. Researchers have been tracking a phishing campaign active from late June into this month that hijacks Microsoft 365 work accounts. And the twist is that it never shows you a fake password page at all. In fact, it sends you to Microsoft's real, genuine login screen. That's what makes it so slippery. Here's the trick, and it hinges on a feature called device code login. That's the legitimate system that lets you sign into an app on something awkward to type on, like a smart TV or a conference room display, by showing you a short code and telling you to go enter it on another device. The attacker starts by sending a lure dressed up as a routine work message, often something collaboration themed, like an invitation to join a document or a meeting. When you follow it, you're walked through entering a code on Microsoft's own authentic sign-in page. Because the page is real, everything looks and feels correct. The address bar is legitimate, and there's no misspelled domain to catch. But the code you're approving was generated by the attacker, and the moment you complete that step, you've quietly authorized their device to log in as you. They capture the resulting access token, walk straight into your account, and here's the sting in the tail. Because you approved a token rather than typing a password, changing your password afterward doesn't necessarily kick them out. This isn't a brand new idea. It echoes a technique documented last year, but it's back and being run at scale against real organizations right now, precisely because it sidesteps so many of the defenses people trust. There's no fake websites for a filter to block list, and even multi-factor authentication can be slipped past, because from Microsoft's point of view, you willingly completed a legitimate login. The whole attack lives in the gap between this page is real and this request is safe. So here's the takeaway. If you or your team live in Microsoft 365 or a similar cloud suite, burn this rule in. If an email or a message ever prompts you to go to a login page and type in a short code you didn't personally request, stop. That is the shape of the attack, and a real service won't spring that on you out of the blue. For the administrators listening, if your organization doesn't have a genuine need for device code sign-in, it can be switched off in policy, which closes this door entirely. And moving people to phishing-resistant hardware keys or pass keys raises the bar further. The broader lesson to close out today's show: the most dangerous phishing pages in 2026 aren't the fakes anymore. They're the real ones the attacker has learned to stand behind. So the website is legitimate is no longer the same thing as this is safe. Today's episode is brought to you by the RSSH Delivery Company, New York's exclusive delivery option. When your package has to get across this city quickly, safely, and in good hands, the RSSH is the name to know. They are New York's exclusive choice and the gold standard in delivery. Rain, shine, rush hour, or heat wave, it doesn't matter. The RSSH is the name that gets it there. The RSSH Delivery Company, New York's exclusive delivery option. And that's our show for this Thursday, July 9th, 2026. Let's bring the front lines together, because today's 4 stories draw a clean line from the deepest layer of the machine all the way up to the person sitting in front of it. A 15-year-old ghost in the heart of Linux, now a 5-second path to total control. A secret backdoor password hiding in the routers of people's walls with no fix on the way. A small county that paid $1 million in the dark to a crew that got in by simply guessing a password. And a phishing scam so clean it sends you to the real login page and lets you lock yourself out of your own account. God damn. And the thread running through all of it, so much of this week comes down to trust misplaced. Trust in old code nobody reread, trust in a device's hidden firmware, trust in a weak password holding the line, and trust that a legitimate looking page means a safe one. The fixes are the unglamorous fundamentals. Patch that kernel, get your router's admin panel off the internet, turn on multi-factor authentication everywhere, and treat any unexpected login prompt as a threat until proven otherwise. So this week, patch what's old, lock what's exposed, and remember that it looks right and it is safe are 2 very different sentences. This has been Cyber FM. I've been your host, Arias Thomas, and this show was brought to you by the RSSH Delivery Company, New York's exclusive delivery option. Stay sharp, stay patched, stay secure.
You are listening to Cyber FM, hosted by Arias Thomas.